Wow, come on in, everybody. Come on in. Good to see you all. Good to see you. Come on in. Welcome. Welcome to this first edition of our Faith, Food, and Freedom University. It's good to see you. Some names I know, people I work very closely with, and others are new cousins in the room. Welcome to the family reunion. Glad that you are here tonight on this first week of Black History Month 2024. I appreciate your presence this evening. We do have a power-packed and informative experience for all of you tonight. And let me just get you ready now. We will be co-creating this experience, not just tonight, but throughout the whole experience, co-creating what it is that I know and I believe will be instructive for all of us. And so please get ready, not just to sit back and relax, get ready to lean up, sit up, get to the edge of your seat. You're going to meet folks, you're going to learn stuff, you're going to connect with others. And I believe that no matter um, what motivated you to come to the room, my prayer and aim will be to make sure that by the time you leave, you are leaving with inspiration and information to help take your work to another whole level. Before we get started tonight, y'all, go ahead and rep where you are watching from. Rep your city, rep your church, rep your town. Where are you coming in from? Let's come on, just do the roll call so we can see where all the family is from tonight. Good God, from Zion, it's about, let me see, how many of it? 72 people here on tonight so far and rising. The 313's in the house. What's up, D-Town? Detroit is here. I love my D-Town family. Welcome, Detroit. Let me see. Maryland's in the house deep. All right. Oh, my, I saw the First Baptist Church of Glen Arden, my cousins from the First Baptist Church of Glen Arden. Thank y'all for being here this evening. Shout out to Pastor and Lady Jenkins and the entire First Baptist Church of Glen Arden family. Buffalo, New York is in the house. Buffalo, I love y'all deep here. I appreciate all the love I've gotten from my time in Buffalo last year and the year before, doing some organizing there. And you know ATL is here. You know I don't halfway go nowhere without some cousins from Atlanta in the house somewhere. So thank God for my Atlanta family. I see you. Thank you for being here this evening as well. Would y'all look in this chat? Miami, Florida is here. Praise God. Memphis, hey, what's up with y'all? Let me see. Glen Burnie, Maryland. West B-Moore's in the house. What's up? Harlem. But rep DC always. I see you, Imani. Home church is the Union Temple Baptist Church, might I add. Shout out to Union Temple. They my fam for real. Love y'all deep here. Appreciate y'all. More DC's here. Amen. Manhattan. Now look at this. Deanna says from the original Chocolate City, living in Manhattan. All right, I ain't mad at you, DC. God bless y'all. God bless y'all. Gentrification got Chocolate City looking like chocolate chip these days. We're going to pray and talk about that because gentrification is real. We talk about farming and land and dispossession. So we praying for our DC cousins that God might continue to strengthen y'all on the front lines of gentrification there. Columbia, South Carolina. Hi, what's up, y'all? Good to see you. Delaware, Ohio. Southside Family Farms, Charlotte, North Carolina. What's up? Great to see you and be with you as well. My dear leader and pastor, Pastor Brenda White from the Allen AME Church here in Baltimore. God bless you. Thank you, Pastor, for being here. Grateful for LA, Los Angeles, California represented. I heard something about flooding and stuff on that side of the country. Praying for all of our family on the West Coast and in California in particular. Oh my goodness, Duval is here. Jacksonville, Florida. Where you at, Duval? They have taught me that when I'm headed that way to Jacksonville, you just say Duval. Love y'all, my Duval family. Appreciate y'all and thank you for being here as well. Y'all, I pray that you keep one eyeball on the screen. Put your other eyeball in the chat box because for the next hour in 7 minutes or so, we're going to have great information and great sharing. And I'm going to say right out the gate that I always believe that the room is the smartest one in the room. That's going to be my mantra for the rest of my life. There's no way in the world that you can get 79 people in the room and not honor the wisdom that's here in the room from people from all walks of life. You have those who are in the academy represented here tonight. We got those who are representing community organizations in the room tonight. We have those who are representing farms. All my farming and food justice folks, thank y'all for being here. And y'all know churches are all over the place in this box, in this room tonight. Shout out to all the churches. So we have a variety of people who look at these issues from a variety of ways. And I just want to invite all of us to be as open-minded and receptive as possible, because the person sitting right next to you in this virtual congregation just might have something to help you in your journey as well. And so with that, let me go ahead and get started. My name is Reverend Dr. Heber Brown III. I am blessed to be the founder and executive director of the Black Church Food Security Network. This year, we celebrate our 9th year in existence, and I personally celebrate, I think, my 15th year in the Black food justice struggle and movement. I'm really grateful to be with all of you, and I'm inviting so many more to come join us as we take this journey. Every Tuesday night in February, we will be right here learning different aspects of farming and food justice and community organizing and the like, and how they intersect one with another. And so be here on Tuesday nights. If you have something else going on Tuesday night, cancel it. Be here. This is the place where you want to be. And listen, let me just tell you, because we already got some emails like, can we get the recording? Can I get the recording? Yes, at the very end of this experience, we will be offering up the recording. But we've been in the virtual and the Zoom space long enough to know that there's nothing like being in the room the first go round. There's nothing like it. And so if you can make it, I want to invite you to be here. We will be sending out the recording after the entire experience, but if you can, be here. I want to also, again, lift up and celebrate our guest facilitators. This is a university, right? This is a university. And as part of this university and our common shared learning, our political education, we want to invite, I like that, Andre Tyler. We want to invite all of the guest professors. And so I feel like, y'all remember Hollywood Squares? I just go ahead and show my age a little bit. Look to your left and look to your right. You will see the guest presenters and professors who will be a part of this experience as well. And so please know that I'm serious when I say share books, documentaries, resources, share links to organizations and websites, share. We are creating rather, a shared online document so that you can click this link after this is all over and go back in and get, what was the title of that book? What was that link to that website? What was that resource? We're going to create that together, y'all, so that at the end of this, you can print that bad boy out if you want to, take it with you, share it with your folk, all that kind of good stuff, okay? And so please, 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 please take me seriously when I say we will do this together. Is that all right? All right, all right. Well, we are ready for this evening's experience. I'm going to lean in and start our Faith, Food, and Freedom University experience tonight. And before I dive in, let me also just say thank you to our staff and our team. Thank you to our director of events, Lanil. Thank you so much for a student from the Morgan State University helping out on the tech side as well. Thank you, Sean, for being here too. To help. One of the baddest and the greatest universities that God ever created is the Morgan State University. But let me stop. I ain't trying to start no HBCU wars tonight. Let's go ahead and make peace and be kind and love each other. All right, family, listen. This is a time of year where generally and normally my inbox starts blowing up my inbox are blowing up with people who want to start gardens at their churches. Of course, as our organization, the Black Church Food Security Network, is concerned, the target of our energy is really around helping make space for Black churches to join in with the Black food security and Black food sovereignty movement. And so it's not strange when about this time of year, emails and phone calls start coming in from churches who are trying to get active and want to do some planning around getting active. In fact, even before this week, calls and emails have started coming in. So we're really excited about that. And churches generally are ready to dive right in and get to work. Let me go do the thing. We want to start the garden. We want to do the market. And that is so beautiful. It is so beautiful that there are, churches that have that energy and drive to do. Oftentimes, though, I feel that I and we in our organization have to hold the reins a little bit because there's such an energy to do, but sometimes there's not a whole lot of space made for why we want to do. And if you don't know your why, you can be out there in deep water doing a whole lot of stuff. And then once you're halfway down the road, then start trying to have conversations around how you're going to organize and structure things. Or what's your motivation? Why are you doing this in the first place? So let me just say off the top, just so you know, you can decide whether or not you're in the right room or not. We in our organization, we are not a food charity organization, number one. We're not a food charity organization. And I'm going to go much deeper into that next week, y'all. I'm going deep on food charity next week. Please don't miss next week. And I'm not going to throw no rocks and I ain't going to pull nobody down, but we got to tell some real truth around what food charity does and what food charity does not do and will never do. I'm going to save it for later. I'm working on my book right now, y'all, and I need y'all to be praying hard. If you got me on your prayer list, write my name twice. I need your prayers because I'm working on my first book. My manuscript is due soon. I'm turning my phone off during the day. My social media, I'm not online. Lord, I'm writing. And one of the chapters I just finished a piece of it was talking about how we cannot food pantry our way to power in the Black community. I'm going to say it again. So when you buy the book, praise the Lord, when you buy the book and read it in the book, you're going to, hopefully the Holy Spirit bring you back to this moment. We cannot food pantry our way to power. It's not defined. It's not set up that way. In fact, it can do the opposite, but that's next week. Come back next week to get that part. But when we meet with churches who want to get active with our network, they want to get active right away. Come on, we want to do a garden. How, Reverend Brown, can we do? And I'm like, wait. Pause. Let's be clear. Our organization is not a food charity organization. And number two, we are not promoting gardening as some hobby. Like this is just some casual, when you feel like it, nice little weekend activity. That's not us. There are organizations that help you if hobby gardening is your thing. But there's a real politics behind why we come to this work. And our politics, I'm not talking about Democrat or Republican. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about the motivation, the why that aligns with the lived experience of Black people in these yet to be United States. What does food and food growing have to do with it? What does farming and gardening have to do with it? And how about those who came before us? How about those who thought about farming and gardening as well? How can their experience and insight help to shape and inform how we approach this work? And thank you. I see, look at y'all, look at this box. Y'all already clapping and saying amen. Listen, I'm a Black Baptist preacher, y'all. You are not going to offend me by saying amen and typing responses in this box. Y'all come on, we're going to create this thing together. So y'all keep it coming. But another thing, family, I'll say we have to do when it comes to this work around farming and around gardening and growing food is we have to reject the impulse that leads us to the place where we say Black people's relationship to farming started with slavery. Can we just go ahead and trash that perspective right now? Can we just debunk that view? Can we cut the legs of that lie that our relationship with farming, Black people's relationship with farming, did not start with slavery? The reality is, if you go back to what some of us studied in school, even from that colonizer's version of education, there were some things along the way that helped us to study. Let me see if y'all remember. Does anybody remember studying things like the hunter-gatherer society and age of human civilization? If you remember any aspect of that, then you remember, and y'all go ahead and add to it, type in the box, some of the characteristics of the hunter-gatherer society and what that meant, all right? And what that meant. What did that mean when they were trying the hunter-gatherer society? What were some of the characteristics? What did they mean? And I'll shout you out as you type it in the box. Type it out in the box. Anybody remember any of the characteristics of the hunter-gatherer society? And again, we're talking about, yes, the history of Black land and farming in the United States, but I had to start here because the relationship that Black people, that people of African descent have with land and farming predates the United States. And really, many communities. United States is late to the party when it comes to the relationship between people groups and land and farming. Check out, Claire says, hunter-gatherer societies, they were on the move. My brother Andre says they were nomadic. Yep. Marie adds men hunted only and women managed the home. Queen Mother Nina Womack said women were the gatherers. Okay. See this? See, that's why I don't even feel no pressure. We all are the smartest ones in the room. Look at all that's in the box. Yes, Deanna, our ancestors put seeds in their bread. Okay, yep, I'm coming right there. Stay right there. I'm coming to you in 1 second. Hunter-gatherer societies. Yep, community-oriented, communal. Yep, y'all got it. So in the hunter-gatherer societies, also I would add one of the characteristics of that time period was foraging. Foraging amongst naturally occurring sources of safe food to digest. Hunter-gatherer societies were on the move. Y'all were saying it. On the move, more nomadic, less sedentary, and that type of existence meant that dwelling places to live, had to be movable as well. We're going to stay here for a minute, get what we need, and keep on moving to the next thing. Hunter-gatherer societies. And then about somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000 years ago, hear what I said, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000 years ago, there began to be a shift from a hunter-gatherer society to a what? Some of y'all might know. To a more, in fact, one of the persons I've read in preparation, they called it the Neolithic Revolution or the Neolithic Age. This is like late Stone Age from the European perspective, but the Neolithic Age, when farming systems started to develop. This was some called it the first farming revolution. The transition from the hunter-gatherer society, which 90% of human beings, about 90% of human civilizations at that time were hunter-gatherers, but somewhere in the 10 to 15,000 years ago range, things started to shift and change. Started to shift and change around what they call the Fertile Crescent, started to shift and change in sub-Saharan Africa, in what we call today Central America, and parts of Southeast Asia and Southwest Asia as well. where agriculture begins to take shape. Agriculture begins to become the dominant form of coming together. And so when you move to this Neolithic age, and y'all, we're gonna go lean in heavy on this for a second. I'm gonna pull us out. We're gonna keep on moving, but we got to go back in order to move forward. Somebody said Sankofa. We're gonna go back so we can move forward. The Neolithic age meant that now you had communities that were able to sit in one place because they were learning and growing and evolving into food growing practices where they could clear land, use tools, create tools, cultivate soil, grow food, and instead of moving from place to place, stay in one place and grow your food in one place. Let me go to the chat real quick. Yep. Look at all the greatness coming out of here. Sustainable food growth for community growth. Thank you, Pastor Wilson. Getting more agency and power over growing food in a systemic way during the Neolithic or farming revolution, the first farming revolution of human civilization, meant that communities were now being established and able to grow at a much faster pace because we can grow food. But not only that, we can build houses with more permanent materials. Also that happened during that time period as well. Yeah. So look at the wonderful information coming in. Yeah. Blue Nile, White Nile. Yes. Thank you. Ancient Kemet. We could study the agricultural and farming systems of ancient Kemet. If you look at many of the what some call the hieroglyphs that are on the temples and ancient Kemetic art, the art of ancient Kemet, you will see pictures of agriculture getting established, animals being domesticated, cattle and goat and the like. All these things start happening and expanding the possibility of what human civilization can be. And so as that's happening, of course, we are learning and growing as a society, and many of our spiritual traditions are rooted in land. Much of our art is rooted in land, and so much more. And so I say this to say, and there's so much more that we can study together, family, why I'm grateful for this chat. We're going to have to, Sean, help me. We're going to have to print out just the chat and add it to the resource list too. But when we look at all of this here, I'm simply saying this to help debunk the myth that Black folk, for the first time ever, started learning about farming at the advent of chattel slavery in the United States. I lift up these histories just to say, we've been here. We've been doing this. And what oftentimes happens, particularly in our community, is because of the horror of chattel slavery in this country and all of the trauma that accompanied that time period, we misplace traumatic responses on the land when really it never was the land that enslaved us. Can we just make a moment for healing in our community? The land never enslaved us. It was the system of racism, white supremacy. That is what kept the shackles, not the land. And so I want to just make some room for us to reconnect with our ancient relative of the sacred soils that helped to support us for thousands of years. We got some work to do to heal and address the pain of slavery, but not misplace that pain and put it on the land or on farming or growing food. I think about a dear friend of mine, Reverend Richard Joyner, in Canida, North Carolina. They sometimes call it cone toe. Reverend Richard Joyner told me the story some years ago of growing up with his farming father down south, and his farming father had to one day hear the complaints of Richard as he was saying, man, I'm leaving this farming stuff. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I'm getting out of this farming stuff. And his father engaged him in conversation around why he would want to leave farming and leave the land. And young Richard Joyner told his dad all the bad stuff that farming and the white man taking advantage, this, that, and the third. And his father patiently waited until he was done and then told him, son, said the land never stole from us, the white man did. The seeds never stole from us. this system of racism, white supremacy did.
Okay.
And so I lift that up to say that our relationship with land is ancient, and our relationship with land has been supportive. And we want to be in a position and a place where we can reconnect and be remembered to our farming legacy, to our food justice legacy, because it will help to nourish and grow us in ways that we can't even imagine. Allow me to fast forward now to another part. I want to present and share another part of these histories. And I'm just lifting up some aspects of things for us to study as a part of this. And some of you know, and you're sharing already what you know. Keep sharing, keep sharing. But another part of the history of this comes in the waning days of the Civil War. And some of you know this history as well, that in the waning days of the Civil War, as the Union Army is making its way across the South, and confiscating lands from Confederate owners and uprooting and challenging systems of slavery, chattel slavery across the South, a thing began to happen as General William T. Sherman is making his way across the South, where formerly enslaved Africans who are now freed because they're crossing over these Confederate plantations started joining and marching with the Union soldiers. The number of them became so great that General Sherman said, we got to do something about this because we don't have enough supplies to support all these people, not enough food, etc. And so we got to have a meeting. And so General Sherman organized a meeting with about 20 African American ministers, Black ministers, and basically asked them, what do you want? And almost to a person, all of them said, we want land. We want and need land. And then, interestingly enough, the general asked these 20 Black ministers, well, do you want to live interracially with the white community and the Black community together, or would you rather live by yourselves? And 19 out of the 20 said, we want our own space. We want to live by ourselves in our own space. And from this experience, from Charleston, South Carolina, down to the St. Johns River in Florida, 400,000 acres of land, formerly Confederate land, is now apportioned in 40-acre plots. And the plan was to provide it to African-American families to establish themselves in their own communities. Shortly after this, though, the president reneged and vetoed that plan and returned those lands to the ownership and stewardship of the Confederates as kind of a peace offering to the South. From the context of this experience, what we have this phrase that you'll find often stated in Black communities. Let me go to the chat box. From this experience, we have what phrase that we talk about? I'm gonna wait because I know one of y'all got it. We talk about the broken promise. There you go, George. George said it. 40 acres and a mule. Here it comes, more and more. 40 acres and a mule. This experience has been a part of what Black folks have unfortunately encountered regularly as land is concerned. Promises being made to provide land for communities, for farming, for livelihood. But because land is such a valuable commodity, as I've often heard people say, God ain't making no more land. God ain't making no more land. So if you got a piece of land, hold on to it. If your family owns some land, try your best to keep it. Put your monies together, make peace in your bloodline to ensure that what your grandparents and your elders and aunties and uncles labored for, that you can keep that in the family. And at some point along this Faith, Food, and Freedom University, I'm going to share some resources to help your families. For those of you who might be in a situation where you need some support, we're going to share some resources and support and at least put it on the resource list to help you all, help you families who are trying to retain your land. But this piece around land has been an ongoing contested arena as Black people are concerned and as the Black freedom struggle is concerned. So from that period in the late Civil War, where lands were made available, lands were given through various means, 15 million acres of land being owned by formerly enslaved Africans. And then fast forward from the late 1800s to 1920, the decline of Black land ownership. 925,000 Black-owned farms around 1920. Fast forward from 1920 to 1975, you get down to 45,000 Black-owned farms. And then today, we have a very low percentage, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1% to 2% of the nation's rural landowners being African-American. This steep slide, this not just slide, push to the displacement of Black people off of lands and the taking of Black-owned land. Some people call it Black land loss. I like to think of it and talk about it more like Black land theft, land being taken from Black landowners and Black farmers, which brings us to the point of really thinking about land, food, and farming in this deeply political way. Now, one of the greatest activists, in my opinion, of the 20th century is a woman named Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer. And Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, she's known widely for saying what? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. But some people act like those are only 9 words she said. And after she said that, she kind of floated off into the cosmos somewhere. The reality is, though, that before she was a voting rights activist, Fannie Lou Hamer was a farmer. Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer in Sunflower County, Mississippi, was a farmer with her farming family. So her roots in land and farming go deep. Here is what she says as she noticed what was happening with respect to food and farming and the Black community. I got to put this on the screen. Please, y'all, check this out. Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer said, wait a minute, can I share it? Here I come. She said, food is used as a political weapon. But if you have a pig in your backyard, if you have some vegetables in your garden, you can feed yourself and your family, and nobody can push you around. Now, I got to give a shout out not only to Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer for this very sharp and keen political assessment about what food is and isn't, but I also got to shout out your great-grandmothers and your great-grandfathers who had mason jars full of food on the shelf down the country when some of y'all went down home when school let out for the summer. Some of us grew up amongst family members who knew how to blanch greens and those who were saving seeds and the like. This is a generation who knew that to have a pig in your backyard and vegetables meant that you were in a position of power. And when we think about and talk about this with respect to the Black Church Food Security Network, we are of the opinion that the more Black people can be in the driver's seat of their own food environment, the better off and healthier we will be. Not only for our bellies getting the nutrient-rich food that we need, but also creating the economic opportunities for ourselves, gathering and organizing our political strength, and being able to be in the driver's seat of what our communities look like. And so with this in mind, when we really think about our relationship to land and farming, one, it's an ancient relationship. We were not brought to the idea of farming in the time of chattel slavery. In fact, our knowledge, wisdom, and genius with respect to farming is likely one of the reasons why European colonizers wanted to snatch African people from their lands in the first place. We knew something. And Deanna said a little bit earlier, talked about African women who were being enslaved, putting seeds in their hair. And look at the faith of this, putting seeds in their hair as they were being shackled and taken from West Africa, not knowing where they were going. But something inside them said, wherever I'm going, the seeds in my hair will be planted, and we will have a harvest and abundance and food for our family, even as we're being ripped away from the place that we call home. Beautiful, beautiful testament to the faith and testament to our desire to get seed and soil and support ourselves. And toward that end, I'm grateful that tonight we have a guest presenter who is going to speak to and share information regarding an organization that some of you may have never heard of before, and others of you have some knowledge of. But what a great blessing that it is that we have the opportunity this evening to sit for the remainder of our time together with a fourth generation Black farmer, businessman, and civil rights activist. He's the founder and president of the National Black Farmers Association and travels the country sharing the importance of farming, and also spends a lot of time in Washington, D.C., engaging with elected officials and with the USDA in particular to address policies regarding farming. And so what I've provided up to this point is a little bit of historical context, a little bit about why and how the Black Church Food Security Network comes to the issue of food justice. I'll be in an ongoing manner talking about how we believe Black churches have a role to play in advancing Black food sovereignty in Black America, and really learning from so many people like Jeramogi Abebe Ajiman, Reverend Albert B. Clegg Jr., Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, Reverend Vernon Johns, and so many more, and why our churches have to be a part of the equation of advancing Black food security and Black food sovereignty from a position of power and not just begging and charity. And what we'll have now is a conversation. I'm so grateful. I see him there in the crowd. Grateful for Mr. John Boyd, who's with us tonight. We're going to bring you up, Mr. Boyd, so we can add the spotlight, and boom, there you are. Thank you so much, Mr. Boyd, for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me, and it's good to be on with everybody. And I was listening to a lot of the history there, so you someone educated you well, so a lot of thumbs up to the history. And I don't know where to start.
I'll kick it off because Mr. Boyd, you have been crisscrossing the country for so many years and addressing the issues around farming and food policy for a long time. The 100 people in the room tonight, many of them are people who may not have heard about your organization and don't really even know the basics of what it is that your organization stands for. Maybe we can start right there to bring them forward to a basic understanding.
I think that's a good place to start. And basically, I'm a fourth generation farmer, and I was taught to farm from my daddy, John Boyd Sr., who I believe was the greatest man in the flesh, not because he had any money, but because of the way he carried himself, and was a great steward of the land. And I learned from my daddy's daddy, my grandfather Thomas Boyd, that the land knows no color. It never mistreated anybody that people do. And land is the most greatest asset that you can possess. Every step you take, every step you make requires land ownership. You can either be walking on your own or trespassing on someone else. The land possesses every great tool that we need as a people to survive: timber to build homes, clean drinking water, and food to raise your family on. Everything that we needed as Black people came from the land. And when we lost that disconnection, I believe it hurt us after segregation. It hurt us as a community because we thought that there was a greater horizon than what was out there waiting for us. And when we really were sitting on the assets, we gave them up, looking for some greater way in factories and stuff like that. But I'm gonna stop there and then come back to 1983, when I was introduced to the United States Department of Agriculture by another Black farmer by the name of Russell Sally.
Wow.
So I wanted to buy his farm. I was 18 years old. I've been farming pretty much all my life, and he said, "Well, Boyd, you want to buy this farm?" And I said, "Yes." It was 110.5 acres at that time.
Wow.
And I told him, yes, I wanted to buy his farm. And I said, well, where am I going to get the money from? And he said, well, the Carter administration set aside some money for Black farmers to purchase land at the Farmers Home Administration, it was called then. And I said, well, I said, I don't know anything about it. He said, but I'd happily take you up there. He said, but they don't, good luck with them folks. They don't like Black people. And so I walked in, and it felt like I was going back in time, you know, with the presence. You know, here I am, a young Black man, a three-letter man. I played basketball, football, and baseball. And at that time in the 80s, even had a few white friends. And I thought the country was heading in the right direction on race, man. And I walked into the United States Department of Agriculture. And the guy that was in there, his name was James Garnett. He was the epitome and the definition of a racist. If you opened the dictionary up and looked at a picture of a racist, his picture should have been there, in my opinion.
Wow.
And long story short, he never did grant me a loan to purchase the farm. I merely assumed Russell Sally's debt. And I didn't understand at the time in 1983 that they had already foreclosed on him.
Wow.
And they were mad because they had another white farmer. They wanted to have his farm. And Russell Sally said, well, I want Boyd here to have it. I know his family. He comes from a farming background. And this young man knows how to farm, and I want him to have the farm. So long story short, I assumed the debt, and farmers need farm operating money every year to plant and harvest. And I was trying to get farm operating money from USDA. And that's when I ran into the discrimination factor. They would only see Black farmers one day a week. We named it Black Wednesday.
Wow.
So I was the youngest guy in the hallway. All of the Black farmers in the hallway were senior statesmen to me.
Mr. Boyd, wait a minute. About what time period are we talking about?
Oh, we're talking in the 80s.
So not 1943, not 1957.
The 80s, where, as a matter of fact, in the 80s, they still had the word Negro on the federal application. One of my first campaigns, I'm getting the cart before the horse here, was getting the word Negro off USDA application. And I had to do that by an act of Congress. And they said, well, we can't just take it off USDA's application. We have to take it off every federal application. That was my first experience with trying to do anything for Black people in this country.
Can we, Mr. Boyd?
Why they still calling us Negro in the 80s on federal application. And I went in one year to apply for a loan. And again, it's Wednesday. And one day, all of us looked at our letters. We looked at our letters and it said, Wednesday, 9 a.m. And we looked at in the hallway, said, well, how's he going to see us all at the same time? Wednesday at 9 a.m. You know, and these guys were ministers, they were preachers, they were deacons, local leaders in the community. And he would have the door open. And he would call you boy and speak loudly and boastfully and downward towards you. And one year, this man spat on me. So he chewed tobacco and he spat tobacco juice on my shirt. And I looked at it, and I didn't know God the way I do now. I wasn't ministering the word the way that I am now. And he said some words that won't fit for the Bible, and so did I. And so did I.
Wow.
So I got my thoughts together and I said, well, I can't take him to the woodshed. That's what we call it in the country.
Right.
Woodshed. That's what we call it. And I was in great shape back then. You know, I was 18 years old. I had a six-pack and some barrel chest and some arms to go with it. So I really could put the hurt on this guy. And I didn't. And so I did a speech at a local NAACP event, and the lady, the civil rights director for the state of Virginia, was in the audience. I didn't know. And she said, well, did you file any discrimination complaints against USD? I said, yes. She said, do you have copies? I told her, yes. Long story short, they come out and investigate Mr. Garnett. And they said, to him, did you spat on Mr. Boyd? What do y'all think he said?
No.
He said yes.
He said yes.
He said yes. Oh, yeah, I spat on that old boy, but I accidentally missed my spat can. I ain't mean to spit on that old boy. I just missed the spat can. They asked him, did you throw John Boyd's application in the trash can? What do you think he said?
At this point, you say he spat on it. Yes.
He said, yeah. I ain't see much sense in processing that old boy's application. I ain't have no intentions of lending him no money anyway that year. And I told him I didn't care if he didn't come back next year. This is someone who worked for the government.
Wow.
So when you hear this stuff about, they say discrimination doesn't exist.
Right.
He carried on and discriminating against Black farmers as though it was commonplace. Wow. As though he was doing the right thing by spatting on me and denying me credit and all of these things.
Yeah.
That's when I formed the National Black Farmers Association with 5 members. And we were upstairs in my house. We were determining what we would call ourselves in the 80s. Back then, they wouldn't even print the word Black farmer. You would see the word minority farmer and you scroll back in the 70s, we were called minority farmers. And we were there, and it was about this time of year in February, you know, when it would get dark right at 5 o'clock. And the power company turned my lights off. I ain't have no money. I ain't embarrassed. And one of the 5 guys who formed the group, he said, there it is, John Boy. It's just as black as it ever gonna be in here. We're gonna call ourselves the Black Farmers Association. And that's how we came up with the name after we spent most of the day debating on what we would call ourselves. And it was my daddy said that if you wanted to break the story, you're gonna need a white woman because the white man will never write about how bad they are. And the white lady started writing about the story by the name of Mary Beausoleil. And the Associated Press started picking up on it. And we quickly went from 5 members to about 25,000 members, right? Just like that after the phone started ringing. And they said, hey, man, this happened to me in Mississippi. This happened to me in Arkansas. This happened to me in Louisiana. This happened to me in Tennessee and North Carolina. So we didn't know it was a national problem. We thought it was just this one local white man that didn't like Black people and didn't want to lend us any money. And we started filing lawsuits in Texas, all the way around to the Eastern Corridor of the United States before we won in 1999 and settled for $1 billion, and 20,000 Black farmers received $50,000 in 12/5. In our first settlement, 83,000 Black farmers came after the filing deadline. It took me 10 more years in Congress, lobbying Congress to get an act of Congress passed that would allow those cases to be heard based on its merit.
Wow.
That case paid out $1.25 billion. And then former President Barack Obama signed that bill on December 8th, 2010. And we didn't get injunctive relief. Injunctive relief is a fancy term for land. Those Black farmers who had their farms in federal inventory, at that time, the government had 1.5 million acres of land that came solely from Black people in this country, sitting in USDA's federal inventory.
Wow.
After we settled the first case, USDA went on a national campaign to lease the land, sell the land for pennies on the dollar to large-scale white farmers after they found out we actually won in court. That's where we missed the boat. So we never got injunctive relief, although the settlement said if you had a farm in inventory and you were meritorious in this process, you would get your land returned. And if you owed USDA debt, you would get complete debt relief. So we never got the debt relief and didn't get land at the federal inventory. And I spent pretty much 3 decades trying to get debt relief. It finally passes in 2021 with a measure of Cory Booker and Senator Raphael Warnock. It finally passed for $5 billion in debt relief. After the white farmers heard that we really got that money, they quickly started filing lawsuits against us in federal court. And they, 2 of the courts ruled in their favor, that it was reverse discrimination in Texas and Florida, issued temporary injunctions saying that it was reverse discrimination. And then we had to organize and raise money to file motions to intervene and appeals and all of this stuff. And right after we won 2 decisions that they reached, that the court should hear the argument about the discrimination, one and all of these other things, the Biden administration repealed it. And for many Black farmers said, well, what does repeal mean? I said, repeal means you ain't gonna get it. So they reversed the language, took the $5 billion out, and that's when I said, this is just like 40 acres and a mule.
Wow.
You promise it, and then when it's time to deliver, we don't get it. It was a signed agreement. There were 16,000 Black and other farmers of color that was eligible for complete debt relief of 120%, 100% to 120%, 100% to pay the whole debt off, and 20% to pay the taxes. That's what the deal was for 16,000 farmers. I was the first one on the news circuit said, man, this is a pretty good deal for us. After I've been trying to get it for 30 years, we finally get it done. And then white farmers, Sid Miller and that bunch from Texas, start suing us in federal court. And the judges, conservative judges. And here's what they do better than Black people. They invest in themselves because they give the money. We don't. And they stick together. We don't stick together. Instead of sticking together and everybody saying, you know what, I support Boyd, and even if I don't like everything he does, the fact that he's out here fighting for debt relief, I'm going to support him. We don't do that. We say, well, he doesn't say everything I want him to say, so we're going to start a splinter group and call ourselves the Brothers of Unity, something over here. That's the wrong thing to do. Even if you call yourselves that, you still say, I'm still supporting John Boyd, National Black Farmers Association, and we want him to win that fight, because if he wins that fight, all of us win. All those 16,000 Black farmers get their land free and clear. These are the actual farmers themselves that still have land. And that's why I focused on them. Okay, there's a part of people who say, hey, I want a farm, but these are actual land owners in the United States. So returning the deed to them free and clear gives us a little bit of step up on leaving that farm to another member of his family, to his child or somebody. And you'll be able to leave it to him free and clear. And you get 20%. To go hire you an accountant and play with the numbers, and you'll be able to keep some money. It wasn't a bad deal for us. That's where, so I had to double back, raise money to fight those appeals. And then after they repealed it, I had to file suit. So I talked to Ben Crump, and he filed a suit for us in federal court. That's on appeal for the $5 billion in debt relief, and hopefully, as my grandfather would say, maybe somewhere along the line, there's a good white man with some good common sense and judgment to say, you know what, this is just wrong. That's where we are in the process. You know, it's never going to be a panel that looks at this and say, hey man, I agree that Black people should get to 120% debt relief. But if you only need one, you need one on the panel that will speak up and say, hey, I want to do this. So I'm gonna stop talking there and then take some questions.
Mr. Boyd, thank you for that. And family, please type your questions in the chat box so we just got a few more minutes. We want to make sure we engage Mr. Boyd fully. What you just offered, sir, you just spanned a period of like 50, 60 some years in about 10, 15 minutes.
It's hard to do. I left out a lot of stuff, you know.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Taking my mule to Washington. I was I was doing sit-ins, I was doing marches.
You covered a lot of ground here.
Out of that stuff, but a lot of advocacy went with this too. You know, a long time, and I'm you know, I'm glad to be able to talk to these 100 leaders on here, but it hurts to hear that they don't know that part of that history. You know, it hurts. I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, but you know, we know all this other stuff, but this is an important part of history. And when they lay out history for the civil rights stuff, they leave out the Black farmers chapter, because that was very historic chapter, and it's still the largest settlement in history for Black people, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. One of my mentors, Dr. Monica White, wrote a dynamic book called Freedom Farmers, where she covers a lot of this history as well. And so I'm going to, family, for those of y'all watching, I'm going to add books to the list. Dr. Monica White's book is one, and she's working on a project now, and you're going to want to support that too. I want to also say that in some instances, and I think this is one of those instances, everybody, our ignorance around such things is intentional and manufactured, which is why political education or our own kind of learning circles will be needed so that we can get information like this. And then in the spaces where we have influence, we can make sure we pass it forward. There's some things we can never depend on their schools to teach, or never depend on their records to reveal. And so that's a part of why we're even doing this, to help create space. And now we have this record here that says, hey, you can come back and watch this presentation, because Mr. Boyd dropped so much stuff. I'm over here trying to catch stuff and write down. I know y'all doing the same thing, but we at least now we have a point of reference to go back and say, okay, let me go check that out. Mr. Boyd, there's a few questions here. I'm going to get to them. They are writing and writing. But can I ask you this? Can we go back a little bit to you as the 18-year-old John Boyd? Because some of the people who are watching are leading youth or young adult organizations where they're trying to get more young people connected to farming and understanding the significance of land. And it can be quite difficult. I'm just curious. I mean, a lot of the political stuff that you've done in advocacy on Capitol Hill, a lot of people will be able to go find that online and go grab a press release and go see that. But I'm interested in John Boyd, the man, and your personal story. What was it at 18 years old, when so many others were leaving the farm, going up north, going up somewhere else? For those people who are watching and who are trying to bridge that piece for young people that they love, what did it for you? Maybe that can help them.
Hey, that's the best question you ever asked too, and nobody's really asked me that. One is Thomas Boyd and Martha Boyd. The man, they had 15 children. My daddy was the last of 15 kids. My grandmother had him. She got pregnant at 49, and she gave birth to him when she was 50, her 15th child. So this is a time period when, I mean, Black people are tough, man, you know. If you can have get pregnant at 49, and you know, thumbs up to grandma and thumbs up to granddaddy, because granddaddy must have been doing something halfway right here too. So that I got to see what that looked like. So here, Thomas Boyd, who bought some 4-5 Boyd land after the Civil War, after 1865. They bought this farm from the original land from the Boyd plantation. They can look that up online.
Wow.
And he held out, and he held out. He held on to that land. He probably paid for it 3 or 4 times. It cheated him so much, but I got to see what that looked like. This man was a deacon in the church, the first one to go down to church and open the church up. Taught me that you live by your word. If you ain't got 5 cents, you tell people what to do with. I got to see what that looked like.
Wow.
My mother's parents were sharecroppers.
Wow.
They were in my lifetime. Lee and Ruth Robinson. They were sharecroppers, and they sold bootleg whiskey to help take care of their children. So everybody that came to Lee and Ruth Robinson's house was shucker and jivers. I got to see what shucking and jiving looked like in the farming background, and I got to see straight up at 6 o'clock Thomas Boyd and Martha Elizabeth Boyd and live by your word, all these things. And I was able to use that in my life politically too. So within 30 seconds, I knew if that member of Congress was shucking and jiving me or they were straight up. I could tell based on my 9-year-old. I was measuring whiskey, man, quart by quarts and 50-cent shots. And people say, well, that's against the law. Man, I learned math from Grandma Ruth, man. I learned how many quarts was in a gallon and 50-cent shots and dollar shots. We shouldn't ever look at our history in a bad way, because now guess what? They got shows on television called Moonshine about what Grandma Lee Robinson was doing, man. And this guy made the best whiskey in the world, but
Wow.
his formula ain't out there, no more. So I got to see what that looked like, and I fell in love with the land during planting season. When you first break open the ground, the land has a distinct smell, and I fell in love with that, and I fell in love with the freedom and the space, and that my grandfather actually owned these acres, that this was his farm, and I fell in love with that concept, and because he taught me all of those slogans, and this man slept with his deed underneath his mattress paper, and he didn't even call them deeds. He said, "These here papers, these here papers says this is my land."
Mm.
And we've lost that significant value of land ownership everywhere around the world.
Yeah.
People fight for land. Look at Israel and Gaza Strip, but
Land.
blood, man, over a little strip of land.
Land.
And we won't fight for ours. We won't fight to hold on to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
I fell in love with the idea of owning land, and I fell in love with planting season and harvest season. And my wife was here, she'll tell you, don't get in John Boyd's way during planting season, because he's gonna go nuts till he get his crop in the ground. And don't get in my way when my combine when it's harvest season, because I ain't gonna stop till I get every grain into the combine and get it sold.
Wow.
That's what's in your blood.
Yeah.
And don't let anybody tell us that we can't compete in a three commodity agriculture, because we invented it.
Yeah.
We invented it. So start off small if you're a new beginning farmer.
Right.
But don't give up the dream of owning acres the way the white folks do, and what was taken from us anyway. That's where we came from, and now they call it all these fancy terms, all and it really was invented by Black people, crop rotation, moving livestock for fertilizer. We invented all this stuff, man, and now they have all these fancy terminologies for it, and government monies. And maybe next time I can come back and talk about how we're not on grid, and why we're not getting any of the subsidy money, because we don't have farm serial numbers. So we're totally being left out of the whole giveaway. So the government giveaway as far as subsidies.
Yeah.
There, because we're not on grid with farm serial numbers. And then when these monies come out in these counties, we can't even sign up because we don't have the farm serial numbers, the farm and homing plans, the conservation plans, the timber plans. We don't have any of those things on books. So we're getting left out. So it's a combination of racism, and it's a combination of not even being on record, so to speak. So, yeah.
Toward that end, Mr. Boyd, one of our persons in the room, Claire Green, says, "I'm going to FSA tomorrow for a meeting. What advice do you have for me?" And for those who don't know, that's the USDA Farm Service Agency.
They have, as bad as I don't like the government, this country still has the best agriculture programs in the world, whether I like it or not. 1% money, 2% money, 3% money that you won't find anywhere else. You can still get it at USDA. They have a new beginning farmer program for new and beginning farmers up to $50,000. They have caps in certain areas for direct loans to purchase land. So while we're fighting to get reparations, while we're fighting to get all about debt relief and all this stuff, you can actually still buy a farm too. And that's where our organization will come in. Go out and apply. If you don't, I tell people all the time, guess what happens if you don't apply? Absolutely unequivocally nothing. But if you apply and don't get it, then organizations like mine can jump in and say, hey, why? We fought for these programs. We want to make sure that Blacks get it. So once you go in there tomorrow, ask them what programs are available, what are the limits in the particular states for the purchase farm. Some states have a different cap, and you want direct loans. Don't let them throw you off on a guaranteed loan, because USDA has direct loans. USDA lends more money than all of the banks put together in the United States and rural America.
Wow.
Than all of the banks put together. USDA direct programs lend more money.
Wow.
So when you ride through the countryside in rural America and you see these river nice farms, you see nice equipment, they're getting direct loans in the form of equipment loans, farm operating loans, and farm ownership loans from the government.
Mm,
Asked about those programs, and if she already has a farm, make sure that she gets a farm serial number, and then get a farm and home plan and a conservation plan. You can see all of those people while you're in that USDA service center. So you have to get on grid, and then, for example, let's say that there's a flood in Georgia.
yeah.
Ag Secretary says, you know what? I'm gonna put $2 billion out here for America's farmers because they were flooded and they lost their crops. Then that particular lady who's asking that question is on grid, and then they'll look at her farm and say, well, she's eligible for this amount of money. Come into the office and sign in this particular deadline. I want us to start getting that free money the way that white people have been getting it the whole time. Whether I like the system or not. I honestly hate the system. I honestly hate USDA. I hate the government, but I don't want us to hate it so bad that we leave money on the table that could help us stay on the farm and help us pay our taxes and stuff like that. Free money, just like white people do.
Next question. There's so many, and y'all listen, I'm gonna do my best. We got about 6 minutes left before I have to let Mr. Boyd go for the night. I don't want to get in trouble with his wife and family. So let me just pull some of these together. One, Mr. Boyd, there's a question. Does your organization connect with young people in any way, like speak to youth groups or work with young people? And if so, what does that look like?
Let me say, and I didn't because I was all over the place. I just came off a national tour. We had 60 meetings around the country.
Wow.
And what I saw was I already knew the age of Black farmer, which is 61 years of age, but they were actually older than that coming into these meetings.
Wow.
We have a very older population, and the young people, the young faces that came in simply were not on grid, what I just described to you.
Yeah.
So I want to work with the young people to get them on grid so that they can build a farming operation. And then I also want young people to start working with these older Black farmers. Some of these farmers don't have heirs, you know.
Wow. Work
with them, learn the skill set, and maybe that farm or maybe some acres will come your way.
Wow.
So I want us to start doing that. We have regional conferences. You can look online to see where our next meetings are. Black Farmers with the S.org. We have a national conference every year that I believe every 100 person that's on this Zoom should attend the national conference. There's going to be something at that conference targeted specifically for you, but you can't get it unless you come. So we bring these companies. I don't like these companies. I don't like the government, but guess what? Everybody has a little something that you may need. Don't let the hate, the bitterness, and all of these things get in the way of us receiving compensation is my sole message here, because without money, you cannot farm. You cannot compete. It's a wish song and a dance, people. You're going to have some money to go on diesel fuel and seeds and fertilizer and lime. All of these things are upfront costs that farmers have to have in order to plant something, even on a smaller scale. So I don't want us to get in the mindset that, you know, we don't need money and all of this. You need some money. You need some money the same way they need it. And I want you to get it. And that's what I've been fighting for. You know, to get some of these doors open. I don't want you to walk in them. I want you to run in there and get all you can. I want you to run in there and take the whole bag with you, man, and come out with all you can come out with.
Mr. Boyd, next question. This is Rich. Next question, and I think I know this one, but I'm gonna make sure. When you talk about getting on grid,
yes.
Some people have asked what that means. Are you saying getting a farm number from the USDA and getting in this?
Let me go more in depth. Okay. I'm speaking to you at my farm in Baskerville, Virginia. My farm has a farm serial number. My farm has a USDA conservation plan. My farm has a farm and home plan, all on record with the government. Any type of government payout that's coming through Mecklenburg County and Baskerville, Virginia, where I speak to you in, I will be eligible to sign up for, because I'm on record. I have those numbers, and I can walk into the office and say, here's my number. Here's my farm serial number. In fact, Here's what it looks like. And I got a letter today say, hey, boy, we combined a couple of your farms with these numbers.
Okay.
This is what my maps look like. This is the map of the farm I'm sitting on right now. This is it. Matter of fact, it looks like that,
Okay.
that. This is the Highway 58.
Okay.
I'm sitting there talking to you in this house right here.
Okay.
This is my map. This is my number. Do you see this track number? It says track number. Can you see that? Track number and farm number.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the numbers that I'm going to need to participate in any government program. So now walking to the office, what's your farm? Here's your farm number. I can tell them my farm number is 5809. And they're going to look at this farm and see how many acres is on this farm, how many acres is open. And you can see from the map, my farm is completely open. On the outskirts of this red line, or that's trees, that's timber. Okay, those lands don't belong to me, but everything within that red block belong to me. And you can see that I have a wide open farm. I have beef cattle here, grain here. That's what I mean to get on grid. So if you have 20 acres, take the deed up there, show it to them, and they're going to give you a farm number, a farm number. Once you get that number, you can participate in any of the white man's game, which is farm subsidies. Here's what they beat us at. They sell a commodity, they cash in on insurance, federal crop insurance, and then they cash in on all of the subsidies. They max out in federal programs, and then the government gives them 100% debt relief. Do y'all see the game we missing?
Mm.
So as they've been maxing out, I'll give you an example. There's a white farmer in this community. Always talk to your enemy. Don't let anybody tell you that you ain't supposed to talk to your enemy. Matter of fact, you grin at them the same way they're grinning at you. And don't like him at the same time the way he doesn't like you, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
This white farmer said, hey, Boyd, I got debt relief and I got it twice. So everything he had, the equipment, he got a debt relief. He had land, he got debt relief, and operating money, he got complete debt relief. And he told me out of his own mouth, throughout his farming career, he got it twice. He said, hey, Boyd, I'm maxed out again. I saw you on the news talking about, I think the black farmer should get it too. He said, hey, man, you ready? I can get it again. So here we never got debt relief one time as a group of people in this country. This white farmer got it twice in his career. He's maxed out, and he's maxed out again, which means after he got debt relief twice, he went back to USDA and got all this cheap money again and maxed out in all the federal programs. That's where we are missing it. That's where we're missing it. So he gets to keep, so you guys, if you don't understand what I'm saying, he gets to keep all the land that he got the loans on free and clear. He gets to keep the combines and the tractors.
Wow.
And the silos.
Wow.
Free and clear. And he started all over again. So most blacks don't even understand what I'm saying for the handful of blacks who manages to get loans from USDA. I want total debt forgiveness for them. Get their deeds back 20%. And at least those handful of farmers, the actual producers and the raisins crop in this country will at least get to keep their land and choose who they want to leave it to. And I believe that's a biggie. And many blacks leaders haven't vocally supported that concept.
Yeah.
They pretty much went along with President Biden totally abandoning the idea of debt relief, the same way he did for affirmative action and all this other stuff. I'm saying, why is it anytime it comes to blacks getting something, we're supposed to take the lesser and be quiet and be happy and move on? And I'm saying, no, I'm not stopping until we get 120% debt relief. That's what was promised to us. And I'm not stopping until we get it.
Mr. Boyd, time is on us. We're now a little bit of overtime. If I can ask you just one more for a quick response, because a number of people have asked it. does your farm need to be a certain size to get a number? And
There's
then
no,
connected to that, can a piece of land on church property or owned by a church qualify for a farm number?
any tract of land can qualify. And there's no minimum land size requirement. That's a hard sentence for me to say.
Okay.
If you own an acre, you can take the deed to that acre and say, I want a farm serial number for this acre of land that belongs to me, and I want to grow some things on it. And they have to give you a farm serial number.
So let me get this straight, Mr.
To
Boyd.
get that farm serial number, you're heading in the right direction. As long as you got a piece of land and you don't have a farm serial number, I hate to use this word, but it's going to become hell or high water for you to compete with the white farmer who's getting all of the government money. Matter of fact, he's getting everybody's money that I see lined up side here. He's getting your tax dollars free and clear, because guess what? These subsidies, you do not pay them back. It's not a loan. It's not a loan. So when they provide, there's a difference between a subsidy and a loan. A loan you pay back. A subsidy is a government giveaway. So you hear these white people talking about they don't like welfare, they don't like all this stuff. The farm subsidy program is the largest giveaway in America.
Wow.
And we need to be a part of it.
That you can pass down to your descendants so that they have land and assets even when you're not here no more. That can just be passed down.
Once that farm serial number's in place, whoever owns it next is already in the system. You're already set up.
This is rich. So with our 250 member churches across the country and the Black Church Food Security Network,
yes,
if all of our churches with gardens and farms and the like went and got a number, a farm number for what their church has, then we get in the space to gain access to the resources that you're talking about, and can potentially also strengthen the advocacy potential, because now you got churches, congregations, and farmers together.
And look here, I wouldn't be a great advocate if I don't make the request. I want everybody to be a member of the National Black Farmers Association. That's the first thing. That's the first thing that I would like for everybody to do. And the second thing is, when all those persons go in and get a farm serial number, guess what? The number of Black farmers increases. Mm-hmm. The number of Black farmers increases. The advocacy role on Congress gets a little bit lighter, because the first thing a member of Congress is going to ask you is, how many of these Black farmers do I have in my district, and show me where they are.
Wow.
So when we increase our numbers, it gives us more leverage to get things to help our population in Congress. So that's how this stuff works. And as bad as I don't like the system, what I figured out was, if I can learn how to beat the system and play the game better than they can, I can get something for my people. And I used a different style of advocacy. I drove my tractor to Washington. I saw what time they came to work, what door they went in. And if they were lead on that committee, I would go by that door and wait with my tractor or my mule, and I say, hey man, my name is John Boyd. I want you to support the Black Farmers Bill. And I had a 30-second spiel for them, man. We got to do things differently if we're going to win and survive, because the way that they work, all they do is change the laws. They change the laws to take it from us. So we have to go around and do things differently if we're going to survive, because they always, as soon as they figure out, hey, boy, figure out how to play this game, they're going to change the rules again. I know how to play. I know how to play. I know how to stick language in the bill. I know how to draft legislation, all things I didn't know. I'm self-taught and self-educated, and I figured out how to beat them. It's in a triangle, through advocacy, through the legal system, and through the courts. And if one of those points in that triangle is missing, you have a failed opportunity. But if you can you're lucky enough to connect all three of those triangles, those lines together, the advocacy, the courts, and policy through Capitol Hill, you can win. You can win.
Well, my goodness, I don't know, Mr. Boyd, if you can see the chat box, but it's on fire right now. And a lot of people have said they got
write me too. They can write me. I'm online, and I'd like to thank my wife for she has bronchitis, She would have been sticking her nose in here saying some stuff to you.
Well, I hope she feels better soon.
And
And I want to shout out our Jacksonville chapter of the Black Church Food Security Network. They just chimed in and said our Jacksonville churches, all of our Jacksonville church gardens, have farm numbers. And so we're going to make it a part of our goal to get the rest of our churches.
hey, thank you. And we had a conference in Jacksonville a few years ago, very well attended conference. And I've been ministering a long time. I want to visit some of these churches. I want to jump in that pulpit, man, and share some of this light. So anyone who would like to invite me during Black History Month, I would love to make a few stops at some network churches. And this is how we bridge the gap through information.
Yeah.
And my daddy said, if you don't step on your shoes while you're dancing, everybody get along. I don't believe in stepping on nobody's shoes while I'm dancing. And I simply need friends. I know I can't win the battle without you, and you probably can't win it without me. That's why we need to be working together.
Yeah.
Be working together. So
this is amazing. Y'all go to Black Farmers with an S.org, Black Farmers with an S.org to connect with Mr. Boyd, learn more about the work, learn more about how you can connect. And Mr. Boyd, get ready for your email to be jumping. A lot of people saying they need to reach out to you. So it's coming.
I'll be glad to give them my email addresses. My whole name spelled out. John, John, Wesley, Wesley, Boyd, Boyd, Junior, Jr. @gmail.com.
At Gmail.
It's just my whole name spelled out @gmail.com. I have a personal website, www.johnboydjr.com. If you're interested in my life, body, work, it's all there. And, I'm at the point in my career where I don't know how many more years I'm going to do this kind of work full time.
Sure.
And I want to work with some people.
Okay.
To pass some torches.
Yeah.
While the flame is burning, man. Don't wait till it go out and try to pass the torch to somebody.
That's right. Can we do a part 2 on that, Mr. Boyd?
Yeah, we can. So,
succession planning and what it looks like to keep.
I've been here a long time.
Yeah.
A very long time, since I was a kid, man, and was thrust into the limelight. And I met with every president since Jimmy Carter. And I'm gonna tell this last story, then I'm gone. When I was in the FFA, man, the only Black kid sitting in there, because I was so interested in farming, sitting in the back of the room. And they said, hey, man, we got a trip going to Washington, man. John, would you like to go? And my family ain't having the money. I said, yeah, I'd like to go, but I don't have any money. They said, oh no, this is an all paid trip. And you're going to visit the White House and all this stuff. So how about I visit the White House? And Jimmy Carter asked to see the Black kid with the afro. The Black kid with the afro was me. The man who took me back there to see him, his name was Ben Johnson. He had an afro too back then. How about Ben Johnson winds up taking me in to see President Clinton years later, the Vice President Al Gore years later.
Wow.
Candidate Hillary Clinton years later. Never dump on your people who will help you up the ladder, because you never know where you're going to see him at along the way. He came in when I was protesting, tied my mule to the White House gate. I was out there protesting. I wanted to see the president, blah, blah, blah. And this Black guy comes out, and I'm mad as 40 words because the government's going to sell my farm. That's another visit when we'll talk about. And this guy comes out. He said, hey, man, you don't remember me, do you? And I said, nah, man, I don't know you. I'm mad. I said, nah, man, I don't know you. He said, well, my name is Ben Johnson, and I'm the guy that took you back in to see President Carter. And my whole madness went down and became down. And this guy became my mentor. He's now retired, but we email and laugh and joke about all this stuff today. But be kind to the faces that offer you a hand up, because you never know where you're going to see them. And that's my last story for tonight.
That's a powerful benediction right there. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Thank you to all of you who stayed on in the overtime to soak up this wonderful conversation. I pray that you enjoyed it. Lord knows I did. And we will continue to learn more and more together. Y'all meet me here next Tuesday night. We'll be back to talk about food charity. A lot of our churches are into food charity, but I think with the fire we got tonight from Mr. Boyd, we are ready to think about maybe some different ways and some new ways to feed our communities, to feed ourselves, to feed our families from a position of power and not begging. That's one of the things I got from tonight. I pray you got something from tonight. Meet me next Tuesday night right here, 7 p.m. Eastern time for more information and interviews. You will not want to miss this. Thanks again so much for being here. God bless you. Please, let's pray for Mrs. Boyd. Keep her in your prayers that she might heal up, continuing the great work she's doing as well. God bless you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, sir.